Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. Late December, early January always reminds me of one of my favorites, Lemmy, because it was on the 28th of December, and I'm not usually good with dates, but I'll remember that one because I remember where I heard it. 28th December 2015, we heard the news that Lemmy died. And in many ways, you've got the first day the music died in the context of rock and roll when Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, and Richie Valens died. But in many ways, modern rock kind of died when Lemmy died. Now let's back up a bit and explain why Lemmy was so special. Now, Lemmy was someone who made music for him and for the people that wanted to hang out with him. He wasn't someone that set out to conquer the world. He wasn't someone with an agenda. He wasn't someone that the record labels made. He wasn't even someone that the record labels particularly wanted. He was just someone who lived on the road as a touring musician, playing for audiences that loved his music anywhere they would have him. And in doing so, he created some of the very best rock music ever. And I say rock very consciously because Lemmy always said, don't call it heavy rock, don't call it hard rock, don't call it heavy metal. This is just rock and roll. And that's really what Motorhead was. It's rock and roll, just played a bit louder and a bit faster than everyone else. And that's what made Motorhead really special. The other thing, though, that made Motorhead really special, the songwriting was actually really good. Jailbait, Overkill, The Bomber, of course, Ace of Spades, Metropolis. The list could go on, but there were some really good songs, memorable songs. And when you're playing that loud and that fast, it's not always easy to make one song sound remarkably different from the other. But he had the riffs, he had the lyrics, he had the hooks. He was a really good rock and roll songwriter. And of course, his performances had everything that you would want. He was playing the bass like a guitar, he had the look, he had the attitude, and perhaps more than anything else, he had the authenticity. So much of music is costumery. Even some of the bands that are hailed as being so rebellious and adventurous and even political, turns out that they were the creations of a record label, or they were the creations of sort of milk toast type of kids who wanted to be cool. They wanted to be something else, which is fine, but it is what it is. But with Lemmy, you were getting someone who was completely authentic. And he was someone unafraid of speaking his views, but his views always defied rather stereotypes. They weren't the kinds of things that you would expect. He was an incredibly open-minded person. He was incredibly allergic to bullshit, whether of the left or right-wing variety. He was someone that understood the essential hypocrisy of power structures, but at the same time, he understood the power within everyone to actually elevate themselves and to think a bit more and to do a bit more and to be independent. He really was, in many ways, flying the flag of liberty. And he loved confusing people because had the sort of the costumes he would wear was that of militarism and war, but it was all for fun. And that was one thing that he made very clear. Everyone tends to, well, not everyone, but people in the press, those people, they try to make every association so ironclad, and they try to make everything oh so serious. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes a leather jacket is just a leather jacket. And that's what Lemmy was trying to say. Have fun, think freely, be independent, try to find yourself a position in life where no one but you is telling you what to do, who to spend time with, or what to do in your time. And I think that in many ways, that's the real rock and roll message, which has sort of been lost under a sea of merchandising and of inauthenticity and a spirit where the costumery becomes more important than the message. And interestingly, as the 20th century turned into the 21st, rock and roll became more and more disassociated from the mainstream of popular music, where rock and roll had been that idiom that defined the musical language of pop music from around the late 60s up to the turn of the 21st century. From that 21st century onwards, hip hop derived dance music became the main musical idiom of the pop world. And so, in many ways, much like the Lost of the Mohicans, Lemmy was one of the lost of the true rock stars. I would say the lost one. And I think that's kind of fitting because he really exposed the bullshit implicit in just about everyone else in that industry. And he did it with style and he did it with a smile, even when flipping you off one Jack and Coke at a time. Lemmy, a true legend. As always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.